possible.
It feels like it's breakfast time because that was a scramble. Everybody just kind of running in chaos because there's so many different individuals from all different areas trying to re-enter after such a chaotic beginning. Now, attempting to move in coordinated. A back position as well by...
So, this is Double Shield. This is what you're seeing here. This is how this comp plays. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how it plays up into some of its matchups here. The reason we're going to do that is this is a very, very powerful composition. It's probably the most powerful composition on ladder right now. It's probably the second most infamous composition in Overwatch's history. At least its tank line is. And what we're referring to when we talk about Double Shield is, of course, the shields that come from Orisa plus Sigma. Now, some of you might go, wait, Reinhardt plus Sigma, isn't that Double Shield? No, bad. Stop it. You're wrong. That's not Double Shield. On the other hand, if you call Orisa plus Diva Double Shield, I'm mostly just going to shrug and go, yeah, that's fine, because you're still playing the composition as an archetypal poke comp, and that works. In fact, even if your tanks aren't playing anywhere near these tanks and are instead playing, say, Hog plus Sigma, say your comp looks a little more like this red one that I've pulled up, that's perfectly fine. It's actually going to want to drive in the same way as this Double Shield 2 bunker type setup, as would your comp if it was Hog Zarya, Hog plus, Sigma plus Zarya, any of those things. So you can learn a lot from this from ladder, even if you don't see exactly the tanks that make up Double Shield. And it is going to help you quite a bit, as you will see this is one of the things that regularly gets complained about in high-level Overwatch. Blizzard is so terrified of it, in fact, that it's probably a big portion of why we're moving to single tank. So how does this work? What is important when you're playing Double Shield? Well, some of the most important things are that you need to split and build two different bunkers. Your two tanks should be split. They should be in a place where they have a sight line that allows them to threaten where the other tank is. So you would want Sigma and whoever's with them to be able to shoot at Orisa, and vice versa. This is going to be important for a few reasons. If anyone gets on top of that group, they can get shot by the other group, which is how these comps actually peel for each other, as well as them actively denying space, denying staging against them. It also means that they always have the ability to fire some crossfire on people that are rotating on either one of them, which is really, really good because most compositions can't defend in two different directions for very long, and shooting in is almost universally better than shooting out in Overwatch. You would much rather be the team, for example, that is blue rather than red in this situation, where the Reinhardt shield may answer this Orisa bunker over here, but the Sigma is going to throw orbs, the Ashe is going to throw TNT, the Zen is going to lob orbs in there on the side of this team, and they can only temporarily answer it as best they can with things like Mei Wall or Defense Matrix or something like that while they try to rotate. They're going to be having to spend a lot to answer it, or they're going to start getting eliminated. So walking down mid, that's not great. Sets you up in a situation where you are the team getting shot in at from two sides. Any shots that anyone misses from the sides, from the angles, might hit someone next to you. You also can't actively pay attention to and actively dodge while looking in two different directions at once. Screen can only face one way. That makes a lot of sense. And any sort of natural cover that you might take against, say, this Sigma bunker, or this Orisa bunker, still would allow you to get hit by this Sigma bunker. Okay, makes sense to me. So what would the Brawl team do in this situation? Well, they'd try to rotate up the outside, and they'd try to create a situation where both bunkers are in one direction, or they force both bunkers together. No problem. Bunker team can see what's going on here, can see that they're rotating, and they can pre-adjust so that they're still in a situation where when these guys get out here, what do you know? They've still got to rotate. The Brawl team still tries to walk on Orisa or tries to walk on Sigma, and they get shot in the side, in the back from the other bunker. The bunker that's being pushed kites. The bunker that's not being pushed continues to walk forward to get closer, to hit their shots a little bit better, to make sure that they're there and they really get to drive the knife into the side of the other team. It is important that neither of your bunkers are unmanned. You do not want a situation where just Orisa is walking into the side of the other team and 5 people are kiting in Sigma's bunker, as then Orisa's ability to actually threaten picks may not be enough, and pushing into the side may not actually work out. Reinhardt's able to block the incoming damage, or D.Va's able to block the incoming damage from the Sigma bunker. So that is something that you want to be aware of. Okay, that's how that works. That was pretty easy. That's going to be playing into Brawl, which is the thing that Poke is naturally thought of as good against. And what if you're playing against something that Poke is generally considered bad against? Something like Dive. We can look at a Monkey Anacomp here, that's perfectly fine. How do you play against that? Well, what you're doing is you're still trying to exploit this poke phase. You're still trying to get picks in this poke phase. You don't want to focus too hard on their Winston and feed him nano unless you're sure you can boost him down. But when dives are successful in high-level play, you'll see something happens. And that something is they're able to set up multiple angles. They're able to go, hey, we can walk on you from 3 different angles. We can set up in such a way where we'll just hit you and let's go like this. We're trying to dive the Orisa bunker. Well, this isn't going to work. And we all know that this isn't going to work because, what do you know? The Echo can't actually stage here. The Echo can't exist between these 2 bunkers. Them trying to stage here, use movement to get here, then wait for a couple seconds to recover movement, that doesn't work. Or them trying to rotate here without movement, if they somehow did that, they're just going to get blown up while they wait that last second for someone else on their team to get ready, or maybe for their Winston to get healed back up because Winston's not going to jump in with 200 HP. So the way that bunkers protect each other, and even just you understanding this can help you out quite a bit on ladder, is you go, hey, if we have 2 different poke tanks or 2 off tanks or whatever the case may be, I want to shoot at anyone that is trying to stage between our 2 bunkers or near between our 2 bunkers. It might not be exactly, perfectly 180 between the 2, might be a little bit out like that, something along those lines, but shooting at that person will break their ability to hit a good dive, and if they still hit that dive, no problem, you still walk on them just like they'd been a Brawl comp, and that diver who you put pressure on will immediately melt. They will not have good dives. Great. If they did want to beat you correctly, they'd actually force some sort of surround and try to force you, sort of force you, shepherd you into your other bunker, then set up 3 angles, then dive you. But you don't care too much if they do that, because if they tried to do that, that takes them so long that you should have had so many opportunities with high-powered pick heroes like Hanzo, like Bap, like Zen, like Sigma, like, throwing out rocks, throwing out halts, things like that. You should have had so much time to potentially get a pick that if they're able to force you to join your 2 bunkers together, then set up, then dive, you kind of deserve to lose the team fight. So that's how you fight that. And that brings us to sort of the last major matchup type, which would be Poke v Poke. Obviously, if a team walks in Poke v Poke, hey, that's a mirror, no big deal. If they want to walk it in the same way this Brawl did down mid, they of course get blown up, angle advantage, nothing too surprising there. But what if they go, hey, let's split, let's fight you from 2 different angles, let's do that. Let's make sure we're in this situation where, you can't set a situation up where you get to have 2 of your groups shoot at one of our groups. No. We're going to set up where we're fighting a little more like this. Okay, cool. Congrats. Now you have an actual mirror. Now you have something that really matters. So now we're going to get into, okay, let's fight this the normal way where we're going to cycle our cooldowns better. We're going to use attention bait windows. Maybe we swapped in a tracer who distracts you, pulls attention for just a moment, which opens the sight line, gives our opportunity to our Ashe for her to peek and get a pick there as Cassidy and Zen turns to look at the tracer, that sort of thing. Or maybe we're going to do swaps, which is what that tracer would be. Maybe we're going to use our ults better. All sorts of things like that. Maybe we just have better aim. We don't need to go too much into the mirror. The reality is, if you are splitting your bunkers in the first place, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And as long as you understand, we would like to create situations where we're sort of able to go, 2 of us are shooting into 1 of you, that sort of thing. But let's cover a little bit of more general stuff that will also help in the poke matchup, as well as everything in general. And those are going to be ult usage, as well as what swaps make sense. So we look at this, we get into ult usage, and I like to categorize ults in 2 different ways. I like to categorize poke and Brawl ults. You do not have to use this terminology. It matters 0 to me. But what these are referring to is ults like Valkyrie, like High Noon, like Window, like Supercharger. Those sort of things are all going to be poke ults, whereas things like Transcendence, Rally, EMP, those would all be Brawl ults. Then you'd have more flexible ults, something that might be like Dragon Strike, Flux, those will actually combo pretty well if you're running both of those heroes, or things like Molten Core that would be more in the, these could be used either way. You could use them to peel once a team gets on top, be it a dive team, a poke team, or a brawl team on top of one of your bunkers. For example, let's say we're in a situation where a brawl team gets on top of our Orisa bunker. We don't really like that. They got there, we didn't soften them up enough, or we did soften them up enough, but they pop beat to sustain. No problem, we answer with Flux, and hey, that works. We could go, hey, they get on top of our Sigma team, we answer with Transcendence. No problem. That's perfectly fine. Again, maybe as they rotated in here, we kited a bit. The Orisa team pushed in. Eventually, they still caught us. They have Lucio, we don't, and we have to pop Transcendence. No problem. That all makes sense. That's the pretty easy to understand one. But what I find more often gets messed up when people are playing these double shield or double bunker type compositions is going to be using these poke ults. You are really, really powerful in the poke phase when you are on these sort of poke compositions. So if you just wait until someone is like even 3/4 of a second into beginning their rotation from one spot to another, even like half a second, 3/4 of a second away from their cover as they start their rotation, and no cover rotation is half a second, not no cover rotation, but for any attack, opponents are going to have to rotate through, places where they have to go 2-3 seconds without any cover. You wait half a second, 3/4 of a second into that, and then you drop a window, or you drop a supercharger, or you pop Valk. You should expect, yes, you might be worried that, oh no, they're going to use their Rhine Shield, their Mei Wall, whatever, and back out and wait our supercharger, wait out our Valkyrie. You need to get over that fear. Just wait till the half a second, 3/4 of a second in, pop your ult, and understand your team has a ton of poke power. You do not need to wait until they're on top of you, or like 3/4 of the way in, 2/3 of the way in, 1/3 of the way in. Even just them being a second or so from cover, 3/4 of a second, boom, pop that first poke ultimate, make sure someone does, and just go hard trying to get those picks. You will a lot, very frequently. That wins you the team fight. You move on to the next one there, and it's absolutely fantastic. So make sure you pop a poke ult early. Make sure you're not popping 4 poke ults, 3 poke ults. It's very easy for these sort of double shield teams to get very heavily stacked up on poke ults, and that's great. You can go, we're going to Valk one fight. We're going to window the next fight. We're going to supercharge to the next fight. Oh, cool. What do you know? We have our first poke ult again. Or, oh, now we're going to high noon in this next fight. All that is totally fine. And then if they get on top of you, you pop one of your brawl ults. Your fight planning could be 1 poke ult, 1 brawl ult. That would be a rudimentary way to do it. But that brings us into the last thing that I want to talk about, which is how do you harden your composition? Again, you could just be one individual player. You don't control everything. You're on ladder here. How do you harden your composition? Well, I've put some of the common swaps on the right side of my screen here. Put a Brig in there in place of your Zen. Does an excellent job of hardening you against dive. Put a Tracer in there instead of one of your DPS. That's going to do an excellent job in the poke versus poke mirror match to go, hey, now we can sort of force someone out, take away some of your angles, maybe start to drive your bunkers together, or maybe they tried to do a 3-2-1 split and you can have their one get forced back, their Hanzo, their Ashe, their Widow that was trying to play solo. You can either eliminate or drive back and force them to play in a bunker. That's going to be really strong. That's also going to let you do some attention bait type stuff. Other things that'll happen, instead of this Tracer, you could run a Genji. You wouldn't really run both. We're mostly past that era of double shield where you'd run double shield, Doomfist Reaper, that sort of thing, and start playing for real close range. We're mostly past that. But what you could run into is wanting to harden more against dive, because dive is the threat to you. We talked about the Brig there. Diva makes a lot of sense as a swap there for your Sigma. You still treat her like a bunker that your team operates around. I know that seems weird, but you do. She just might leave a little more often to go deal with something, or she'll be there to just cast a DM over your team when it gets dove, which if the dive team has to go through lamp, has to go through DM, has to go through fortify, has to go through Brig, Inspire, Bash, that sort of thing, they're not going to have a good time. DM really delays their burst window, being able to take someone down, and dive teams are really counting on getting, within the first 3 to 4 seconds there, a good 2 eliminations when they're playing against these bunker squads. Likewise, you could further harden. You could swap out one of your DPS for a casty, give them another stun. You could get a Torb in there, make them have an even rougher time in staging, not let them hold any of those places with that turret, the overload for more armor there, all that good stuff. And then if you're playing going, hey, wait, how do we beat Brawl? Well, if you're struggling to beat Brawl, you're either not taking your angles, you're not using your poke ults, or more likely, you made too many swaps. You made too many swaps to harden yourself against dive, for example, and you just didn't leave yourself with enough real poke. So you'd start to move back to some of these heroes that we started with, or maybe you even mix in a pharmacy, mix in a Pharah Echo, something along those lines. Anyway, that's what I wanted to cover today. It's a really powerful composition. Your whole team doesn't need to know how to run it on ladder the same way they might need to for dive for it to be successful. It's something that even you knowing, hey, I can swap from this support position into a Brig or into a Zen, or as a DPS, they're pretty poke heavy, so let me go Tracer and I know how to work with this team here, or hey, I can swap over to the D.Va. And again, this still works even if your tanks aren't playing Orisa plus Sigma. You're not going to get that many Orisa plus Sigmas. You are still, however, going to see a lot of Sigma plus Hog, Hog plus Zarya, Zarya plus Sigma, that sort of thing that you can go, wait, I understand this. If my tanks are playing split at all, which Roadhogs like to do, I can treat this like it's a double shield composition. I can play it the same way. I can make sure that we're using one poke ult, that I'm not throwing my second, my third poke ult into it when things happen. I can maybe call that little plan, that sort of thing. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please drop a like, consider scribing and subscribing. Feel free to leave any questions down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.